Shaun Davies.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I speak to Amendment to Clause 1, which flies in the face of the intention of the Government and of this House to immediately reform the House of Lords by removing the last 91 peers who sit in Parliament based solely on their bloodline entitlement. I start with the premise that the last 91 hereditary peers sit in the other place as a result of a compromise in 1999 when more than 660 hereditary peers were removed, and take the view that the other place, and indeed this Parliament, is no less effective as a result. The very architect of that compromise, the Marquess of Salisbury, has said so himself that this arrangement was supposed to last for around 6 months. The final 91 have had an effective notice period of 26 years already, a notice period that any worker in the real economy would no doubt welcome. It is now time to complete this reform. And for those seeking to support the amendment, I ask, where have you been? One of my predecessors as MP for Telford, the Right Honourable the Noble Lord Grocott, who for decades has continued to campaign on this issue, has been vindicated at long last. He has proposed exactly the measure that's outlined in Amendment 1 by ending the by-elections to phase out the hereditary peers in 4 private member bills over the last 26 years. Each and every time, those have been blocked by the Conservative peers and the Conservative governments. So I don't believe that this is being brought forward in good faith, but instead a way at clutching straws to prevent progress, because they fear change. In a recent speech on this bill, the Noble Lord Grocott used the word gestating to describe the reforms he's tried to introduce for over the last 30 years or so. That's the right word. The opponents of these changes knew in the 1990s that they had lost the argument, that the best that they could do is slow down the inevitable, bog down reforms of procedure and compromise, and I agree with Lord Grocott that for almost 30 years that gestation is far too long for anyone. This Government's decision to finally lance the boil and remove the remaining hereditary peers is long overdue. But it should be no surprise whatsoever that we're facing exactly the same kind of resistance now as our predecessors faced 26 years ago. First, they try and defeat the bill. Then, when that fails, they try to compromise. And back then it was, well, just keep a few hereditary peers, phase them out so the change isn't too sudden. Now it's, you must keep hereditary peers, phase them out so change is not too sudden. Somehow, what was only ever intended as an interim solution is being replaced by another interim solution. We've had 26 years to phase out hereditary peers, and they are still there. Frankly, Mr Speaker, the 92 remaining hereditary peers have had 26 years of borrowed time. In fact, we've also heard from a Tory hereditary peer about the repercussions for this bill, a threat that they will use obstruction and delay to get what they want. If this sounds familiar to the House, this is because in 1998 that was exactly the same threat that was provided to the then Government and to the then Parliament. That if this went through, the Marquess of Salisbury said, my whole tactic was to make their flesh creep. We must resist this fear-mongering, these underhanded tactics, this opposition at all costs to the democratic process. Those putting forward this amendment might say, well, unlike the last compromise, this one will eventually see hereditary peers leave the other place. But when? Madam Deputy Speaker, they've already delayed the inevitable by 25 years. Will we have to wait another 25 years, another 26 years, another 30 years? The youngest sitting hereditary peer is just 39 years of age. I wish him a long and happy life. Of course I do. And if he survives to the age of the oldest sitting hereditary peer, 93, it will be another 54 years until the end of this interim solution that was agreed 26 years ago. Madam Deputy Speaker, that's 11 general elections from now. A Telford constituent born the day that the House of Lords became an Act, that the House of Lords Act became law, the day we started phasing out hereditary peers, would be 80 years old by the time the last one retires. That's enough for my constituents to have been retired from this House themselves.
Will you allow, please?
I will.
My honourable friend from Telford is making an excellent point, and the work that Lord Crocott did on this in the other place is commendable, and again, sadly, it was blocked time and time again by the Conservatives. But the point he's just made about the youngest hereditary peer and the number of general elections that may elapse before he would see himself out, of course, by no longer being a member of the House of Lords, he regains his right to both vote in and stand in general elections. So if he wishes to return to Parliament, there's plenty of places in this House he could try for.
Indeed, my honourable friend makes a valid point, and also the point that has been made by other members, including the opposition benches, that there is nothing to stop the Leader of the Opposition putting forward any of those hereditary peers for live peerages also. Madam Deputy Speaker, to conclude... Oh, well.
Point. He says that the Leader of the Opposition could give those peerages, but he will be aware that that is organised in conjunction through the usual channels with the Prime Minister and members of the governing party. We would be a lot more comfortable today to talk about the replacement of those hereditary peers if the Minister came here with any clarity on what conditions that may be set going forward. We've had none of that, so I just challenge him slightly to say that they can be put in as live peers, but we'd like some more information on what we're getting.
The Honourable Gentleman makes an interesting point. I would say that it's about priorities and choices. The Leader of the Opposition will have nominations to be put forward this year, next year, and maybe the year after, whoever holds that place. And she can make a decision as to whether she puts forward a member of the hereditary peers or somebody else during that spot. I will very briefly.
I'm sorry to be up again, Madam Deputy Speaker. The point that's being debated here is important, because since the general election, there have been 21 nominees to the other place since the general election. That would have counted for half of the entire hereditary peerage group for the Conservative Party had the Leader of the Opposition taken the opportunity to promote them to life peerages. They have chosen, by not doing so, to keep those hereditary peers out.
The Leader of the Opposition has got a number of tough choices ahead of her, and those choices will no doubt be executed using her good political judgment that she apparently has. And in conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, for those right honourable and honourable friends from different sides of this chamber who say that we need more reform of Parliament, the House of Lords, the Constitution, the way that this country works, as a moderniser and as an MP for an area that the current system does not work for, I could not agree more. But I say that this modest change, this slender bill, has taken around 10 hours in this place, around 40 hours in the other place, more than 180 amendments tabled. Can one imagine how a larger and more far-reaching bill would be treated? And as the Minister has already stated, there's been calls from the many people from across the political spectrum in the other place that there should be a cross-party approach to that, and that's exactly what the government's doing by the establishment of a select committee. But I will just close on this thought, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we also have heard over many, many years, many decades, the promise of future reforms. I support the government today and will vote with the government today on the basis that those future reforms will come through, and I hope that the government will be true to their word. So for areas like mine, constituents like mine that have seen themselves being locked out of this place for far too long, will have an opportunity to serve it.
Yeah.